It's recording. Were we not recording the whole time?
Seems like every road you're on is hit a dead end. There is hope. Let me show.
Well, hi.
Hello.
Welcome
We ready?
to episode 2.
Episode 2. Episode 2.
Are you ready for it? Ready or not?
Yeah. Can't believe they let us do an episode 2.
Well, no one said no yet, so we're gonna keep on chugging along.
I know. Until they cancel us.
What? I think we're so small that no one should cancel us. Here's the hope for that, anyways.
Well,
So,
we'll find out soon, won't we?
how are you? Have you been? Let me ask that again. How are you?
I'm tired. It's 8 a.m. and we're doing a podcast in 2 different geographical locations.
Well, the only
And I
thing
have a
different from last
Bright
time.
LED light in my face. So I'm like partially blind right now. And I don't have my glasses on. So,
Oh, why not?
because the glare. You wouldn't be able to see my eyes.
Oh. Well, I was going to teach you a trick about that, but now we're on camera, so never mind.
No. And this is a podcast about our trauma, not technical studio stuff.
Or advisory things.
No, yeah. We're here to talk about hard, complicated stuff.
Talk about hard, complicated stuff. Well, you are going to get the spotlight today, sir, because you're the older brother, and kudos to you being first. So why don't we just get down to business and start sharing what you've endured in your trauma. We talked a little bit about that in episode 1 where you were sharing how our abuser really was having a game plan of destroying you and really making it adamant on dividing you and our mom and saying that you're the reason why he can't have a relationship with her. Is there anything, just to start us off in this conversation, is there anything in that realm or even deeper rooted abuse that we can start off of from that point?
I mean, yeah, we can start anywhere. We can start from beginning. We can start middle. Abuse doesn't have it does have a genesis. It does have a starting point, but we can start wherever we want.
Well, why don't we start at, do you have any memories of our abuser before mom and him got married? And do you remember any abuse that he did before marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
Yes and no. I don't remember him much.
Okay.
So, we have different fathers, and our mother remarried on my 5th birthday. And I think she at least knew him for a year before. So you're talking about a 3 to 4 year old
Yeah.
having any concept of what abuse is,
Right.
what danger is, So I don't really remember him much. I don't remember him to that extent. But I do have memories of when we lived in the house before you were born.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember a few things. I remember a few things, which back then I didn't know was abuse, but I also didn't have like a father figure. I didn't grow up with a father, so I also didn't know like what things were supposed to look like. I just thought that this was normal.
Like having only mom?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with our grandparents and my mom, but like I didn't have there wasn't a male in my life
Hmm.
who was constantly there. So you get someone to come in and sets the standard. I just thought that was normal. I thought that was how all fathers were, how all fathers talk to their kids, how all fathers treat their wives. I mean, eventually you you kind of get out of that mindset, but as a child, no, I you just that's just what you know. So yeah, I remember. Um, I guess I remember when the abuse kind of started, or when I started noticing that things now as an adult, realizing that they weren't okay. Yeah, I have a few memories. I remember being in the bathroom, um, because like our abuser would he would take me to our grandparents' house before school.
Okay.
Um, so he would have to before work. I would have to get ready. He would have to take me to our grandparents' house, and then he would go to work, and then my grandparents would take me to school. Not for any reason, just to kind of spend time, with them. And I remember he would tell me like, he never got to have a good relationship with his grandparents, and that he was jealous of me. Um,
Really?
and as a 5-year old, 6-year old, I didn't really have a concept of what jealousy meant. I mean, I did. Like I knew what it was like to be jealous that a friend had a toy that I didn't have, or my friend got to go to Chuck E. Cheese and I didn't, But like
Yeah.
I didn't know how deep rooted that would be. I didn't know. There's that saying that every what is that phrase? It's like every admission is a confession, you know, meaning
Hmm.
when someone accuses you of doing something, it's really them admitting that they're the ones who actually do that. They're just gaslighting you, thinking, to
Right.
make you think that you're doing it.
Right.
So when he was saying, I'm really jealous, that was an admission. That wasn't like playing games.
Mm-mm.
That wasn't really like a cute thing to say. That was an admission of pain and malice,
Hmm.
and I don't know when he started to feel like he could say that to me, but I have a few memories of stuff like that where it was when I was a child, maybe when you were a baby, when he would tell me like, you know, um, that he was jealous of me, that in order to have a relationship with his wife,
Oh.
he had to remove me from her, like her and I not being together, like in the same room, or like you go outside, like, or something like that.
Hmm.
And again, as a kid, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really know, like, you're having an adult conversation with a child, you know. I
Right.
had no idea, and I wasn't telling our mother because I didn't really know what was being said. I
Well, you
just thought
didn't
like I
know
was in
you needed to say
trouble.
it.
Well, I just
Right.
thought I was in trouble, and it's like, okay, if I'm in trouble, then okay, like, you know.
Right.
So there was that.
And the
I
fact
do
that he
remember,
just point blank said that he's jealous of you
yeah.
to a child,
Mm-hmm.
he's jealous of a child.
Mm-hmm.
I that's new information. And that's wild because what, he was probably 30 something, 30.
Um, late 20s, early 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's jealous of a 5-year old, of a 6-year old.
Well, we have very loving grandparents, and he did not have a loving family. And I can understand that. I can understand. I mean, I understand that. I remember being an adult and being uncomfortable around my friends' parents because their fathers
Yeah.
were nice to me. I didn't know what to
Mm-hmm.
do with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's confusing. You get to see the thing that you didn't get to have exist in someone else. Like,
Right.
it's
But
not
did
an
you
easy
point blank
feeling.
admit it to your friends that, hey, I'm jealous of you?
Well, I mean, as an adult, I would tell them like, yeah, I'm struggling here because I don't know what to do with this, but we're getting off track now.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just pointing out the fact that that an adult is confessing to a child
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
giving you emotional responsibility of his jealousy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was a screwed up situation because my grandparents weren't going to not love me.
Right.
So he's pretty much saying, hey, this situation, you're going to be screwed because I'm going to be perpetually jealous of you and envious of you because of the dynamic. And because that dynamic's not going to change, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to change,
Right.
you know? So I remember stuff like that. I remember he would call me names a lot, you know? Um,
Can I ask
not
like what?
like, huh?
Can I ask like what?
Oh, yeah. I remember I guess he wouldn't hold on. So like I remember one thing, I used to have a cat and I would let
Mm-hmm.
the cat like lick my face as a kid, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he felt it was necessary as a joke to tell me that the cat licks its butt.
Uh,
So therefore I like cat butt, you know, butt licker. He wouldn't call me that, but he would allude that I'm
yeah.
weird or odd or, you know, things like that.
Right.
Stuff that doesn't like need to be said necessarily, you know.
Right.
Like if you're that worried about hygiene, you can tell your kid like, hey, you know, animals kind of lick things, probably not a great idea, you know,
Right.
because he didn't do that to you or our brother, at least not that I ever saw, you know.
You know what I've learned so far is in our conversations I've gotten flashbacks that I didn't have not remembered, like they've been blocked. So
Hmm.
maybe through this journey I'll remember he did something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head
He
right
could
now though.
have, but he would do it like in front of mom, like it wasn't like in
Oh.
secret, like in the car or in the garage, like it wasn't like he isolated me from everybody.
Well then
And
what would mom do? Do you remember mom doing
she
anything
would
when he
get
did stuff
aggravated
like
and
that?
tell him to stop it, but it didn't
Yeah.
stop him. You know, he kept doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So there was stuff like that. I mean, I remember too. One big thing I remember. Well, let me just talk about some events because I can kind of hop along here.
Okay.
So as a kid, I have one bad memory of there was one time mom got me in the car and I don't know why, but we were trying to get out of the house and get away from him. They were in a fight.
Mm.
Don't know what it was about. Don't know who started it. I have no idea. I'm sure even if I asked mom, she couldn't even tell you why that event was
Sure.
happening, but she got me in the car. I was in the passenger side and he didn't want the car. He was preventing the car from going in reverse and getting out of the driveway. And he was
Oh.
yelling at us to get out of the car. And then I remember she was yelling like, "No, I'm not going to get out of the car." And I remember crying, asking them to stop fighting, and I was told to shut up. And I remember things differently. This next point, I remember him punching the window.
Okay.
Mom says that he was actually holding on to the window itself and it shattered. Like that's what he was holding on to. But I remember a punch. I remember a
Okay.
punch.
Okay.
Because I remember the glass shattering. What I remember was him saying, "Get out of the car," shouting, punch, brakes. Mom's crying. We get out of the car. She gets out of the car. I get out of the car. And then I don't remember what happened afterwards, but I just remember us being in the house in the hallway, and it was his, I think it was his right wrist because it was all bloodied. And it was like wrapped and bandaged. And I remember him saying something like, it was like apology time. So he was like, I'm gonna, I have some stuff to work on, and I need to let like God heal my heart or something like that. And I vaguely remember putting like my hand on his bloodied hand, and I told him something on the line of like, "I'll help heal your heart." So already as a
Oh,
kid, I was a misguided burden bearer, a misguided empath, thinking that it was my job to help this man when in reality it was his job. But I remember that. I remember, let's see, as a kid, I remember there were times where he was just mean to me. There was one time where he was sitting in the living room, and we were kind of in the dining room, and it was in a house that you were maybe a baby there for, but it was very similar to the house that we grew up in, where it's like an open floor plan. Like you have the living room up
mm,
front, and the dining
mm,
room is like attached to it. It's just this big space. So it was the
mm.
same concept. So he was wrapping up like a computer mouse cord or something. It was a computer mouse, and they were, I don't know. I was saying something or doing something that was like annoying him, and he was like, "You better stop it," and I wasn't. I just kept doing it, and he threw it, and it hit me, and I fell off the chair, and it really hurt. So like, I was not treated very well. I was not treated very well. Um, and the sucky part is that there were times where he wasn't like that.
Yeah.
There were times where he, whether it was genuine or not, he wasn't like that. And as a kid, you don't really know what to do with that. And as an adult, I've taken more of the stance of it doesn't matter if he was good some of the times. What matters is the fact that
Right.
he did these things, was not remorseful, or at least didn't act like he
Genuine.
was because he kept doing
Right.
stuff. You know, he kept doing
Right.
things like that. Um, there was times where I only remember one story of him abusing our mom physically.
Mm,
Um, the most I'll go into that was we were at the house that we grew up in. I think our brother, bleep that out. Our brother
I will.
um, was a
Bleep.
baby. So that means that
Okay.
you were probably like 2 or 3.
Okay.
And we had a white van that was a 3-door van.
I
And
vaguely remember a van.
yeah, a white van. And
Mm,
we were in the car. Mom was trying, she and him were in the driveway fighting. And I couldn't see because, you know, that driveway has no light. So
no, it
I
doesn't.
couldn't see, but I could see silhouettes. And I did not see what happened, but all of a sudden she's on the floor crying, and he's yelling at her to get up.
No.
And as a kid, as an older brother, you know, I didn't know what to do, and I was really afraid. It sucks at the time. At the time, I mean, I was concerned for mom, but I was also concerned, like, is he going to do that to me, and what's going to happen to my siblings? You know, we're in the
Mm,
car, and they have no idea what's going on. And I remember telling our older cousin about it at the time, um, because I was scared and I was afraid, and it wasn't like mom and I would talk about it, like, you know, uh, if he wasn't in the house or if he was at work or something. It wasn't like she and I would talk about like, hey, what happened last night wasn't right or stuff like that, you know. Like, or and if we did, I have no recollection of it.
sure.
Doesn't mean it probably didn't happen, but I have no recollection of being sat down like that. But when I told my cousin, he was shocked, and I remember he was telling me that it wasn't okay. Um, so I was probably like 8, 9, and he was
Mm,
probably, I don't know, 12 at the time. But that was kind of like my last pitch. I was like, I need to tell someone about this.
mm.
And I told him, and nothing came to fruition with that, meaning no one intervened. I didn't get in trouble. Like I didn't come home one day from school like, what did you tell your cousin? And you know, your aunt called me, or grandma and grandpa are angry, like nothing. So
Right.
I learned as a kid that I was alone, and no physical person was gonna come rescue me. And so I did what I had to do in order to survive in that household. I remember even having short term OCD because I just needed to have like something to take my mind off of the chaos. Um,
Okay.
so I remember as a kid, I would count syllables. So if I was watching a movie, I would count the syllables of words. And if it added up to an even number, I was good. And if it added up to an odd number, I would like get angry. I would just get angry randomly.
Hmm.
But like, thankfully I don't have that anymore. But you know, you do what you have to do in order just to have some sense of normalcy. You know, go into the future. You know, creating this illusion that things are fine when they're really not is a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I really enjoyed being at school, so that way I didn't have to be around. I could at least escape, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then I don't know. If things eventually kind of changed a little bit, like there wasn't physical altercations much, but the abuse was kind of all encompassing in terms of, you know, abuse, mental, emotional,
Right.
you know, and then like it more subsided into emotional, mental, um, because when you came along, when our brother came along, things were different. He treated you guys very differently. He treated you guys like you were perfect kids, and you guys were his, and he
Hmm.
loved you guys. You know, you guys never experienced what I had to experience. Doesn't mean he wouldn't
Do you
like
think it's
it.
because, sorry, do you think it's because our brother and I were born was one of the reasons or the reason why he stopped physical abuse?
I don't know why he stopped the physical abuse. I think as I got older, and I think as people get older, you start to
Right.
realize that, oh, this isn't really okay. Or if I continue to do this, someone's going to catch on and I'm going to get in trouble, you know? I also
Right.
think as an abuser, when you are intentionally abusing people, you have to do it consistently, but in other ways. So that way,
Right.
if you redefine what abuse is, you can get away with not doing the old version of that. So if abuse only meant physical, well, fine, I'm
Yeah.
going to abuse you emotionally. So that way you can never claim that I'm abusing you.
Right. Right.
So, oh, but now abuse is physical and emotional. So if I abuse you spiritually or mentally, I can still get away with it because I'm not doing the technical definition. I'm not doing things, and so it perpetuates you to be in this roundabout thing where
Yeah.
you technically in your brain go, well, he's technically not doing that. So I guess this wouldn't be abuse. He's just being mean, or he's just having
Or
an
it's not
episode.
traceable. Right.
Yeah. So he gets to do what he wants to do, which is to destroy you, and you're
Yeah.
left going, I can't prove it because he's not
Right.
doing what he used to do. And you make excuses. Well, he's not doing what he used to do, so obviously things must be better. They must not be as bad. It must be a me problem. It must be, I don't like it, so I need to go to God and pray about this because he's better.
Yeah, I remember thinking that.
You know, so it's, you know, for me, I don't know if I ever had that perspective. I mean, I didn't know that the abuse was technically wrong. Like, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't have a reason why it was wrong, you know? Um, but I never thought that he was okay. I never felt like it was
Like
hot
he
and
was a
cold.
safe
Like,
person?
he's like bipolar. Like,
Okay.
he's in a
Yeah.
really good season right now. It's really from the months of February to June, he's really bad. Like, I didn't conceptualize it that way. I just knew that, okay, something's off and I don't know what it is, but because he treats my mom and myself differently than my brother and my sister, there's something wrong here. There's something that
Right.
doesn't cover all of us. Um, So, I mean, and the abuse just ended up being different, you know? It was more isolation. It wasn't him calling me names anymore. It was my brother and sister are taking up his time and attention. I'm nowhere. I'm with my mom. We're the ones that get casted away as like, meh, I'm gonna make time for my real kids. Because I wasn't really a real
Really?
kid, you know. Now I don't think I ever heard him say that, but his actions prove
Is what
that,
displayed that. Yeah.
you know. So that the abuse kind of turned into that. But he would still be mad at me. He would still blame me for stuff. He would get mad at me because like he would go in a tirade and yell at me and demand that I defend myself against him, like stand up for myself. And then my mom would interject, trying to protect me, and then he would get mad at her for interjecting. And then if I try to stand up, he would get mad at me for standing up. So it was like a lose-lose situation with him where it's like the only thing I can do to survive is just obey. That's the only thing I can do. Just obey his crazy, just obey his craziness, you know?
Really?
And I would just, well, I mean, what else are you gonna do? You know?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, of
you're
course.
stuck in a prisoning situation and you've learned that no one's gonna come, or you've taught yourself to believe that no one's gonna come rescue you. So it's like if I'm gonna be here till the time I'm 18,
Right.
this is my reality. So how can I make this work for me? How can I lay low and do what I can? So
And keep the
um
peace or anything like that, too.
what was that?
And keep the peace.
Yeah. I mean, you have memories of me taking you and our brother to the furthest end of the room so that way we wouldn't hear them yelling and screaming, you know? And
You would
that,
play with us to keep
yeah,
us distracted.
I would play music loud, you know, I would do
Mm-hmm.
whatever I could just to kind of distract you guys from it because you guys didn't know that world. You know, you weren't
Mm-mm.
part of it. And I think he went after our mom more than me, you know, for sure, because she was married to him.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
definitely like was second in line, you know. And it's not a
Of the
competition. It was just, you
direct
know, he
abuse, you mean?
just hmm?
Of the direct abuse, you mean? Second in line being abused
Oh yeah, mom
that
got the
directly?
worst of it. I was the
Of
next
course you
in
did.
line.
Got it. I understand.
Yeah. Like, you know, so we were, but her and I were a package deal in his brain. We came as one twin pack.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah. So you know, and that's kind of what the normal was. Then he became ordained as a pastor, and we were pastors' kids. Um, and I have another story that I think I've told you about. So back in the day, our cell phone providers were different. So you know, if I have Verizon and you have AT&T, we live in a world now where that's fine. But back in the day, if you were out of network, you would get a large charge on your phone bill. So we all had Verizon as a family, but the church phone was AT&T.
Okay.
And our abuser would never call us with his Verizon phone. He would use the church phone. So it was just this huge Verizon wireless bill. And our mom was like, it's stupid that we're paying Verizon and AT&T. We're both going out of network, so both bills are raising. Fine, if you're going to use AT&T, I'm just going to move us all to AT&T because that's what you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember one day I was in high school. I was probably a freshman or sophomore. And I remember after school, she picked us up. I had a cell phone at the time. And this was before texting was free and stuff like that. So I only had a
Right.
phone for like emergencies, but I still had one. And we went to AT&T, deactivated our Verizon. It took like 2 hours, right? And
Okay.
then we went home. So now we all had AT&T phones, and our abuser, I guess, was working late that night, or he had someplace else he had to be. But I remember I was sleeping. I was in bed. Well, I wasn't sleeping, but
Okay.
I was like, you know, trying to sleep. And I chuckle because I'm sure you know, because when you came back
My
a few years
hiatus.
ago,
Right.
um, you were in my room, my bedroom.
Yes, I was.
And so you can tell if he has a normal walk or an angry walk
Yes.
based upon
Yes.
how the floorboards sound. So I heard the door slam,
Mm.
and I could tell geographically in the house because of his walking pattern that he was coming to my room and he was angry. And so he opened up the door. I'm in bed. And not like how you have your bed against the window. Mine was perpendicular, meaning my head was like close to the door. And so he walked in and he was mad at me that I didn't call him to tell him that mom was changing the phone plan. Like it was my responsibility as a 14-year-old to tattletale on my mom to let him know that she took it upon herself to change a phone plan. So he's yelling
Okay.
at me, going, "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me?" You know, and I was like, he asked me a question, and I don't remember what the question was, but I remember my response was like, "I don't remember." Like, he asked me some sort of question that was supposed to draw back a memory or something to recall something.
Sure.
And I was like, "I don't remember." And so he walks up and he punches me in the forehead and goes, "Think about it." And I'm just like stunned. Like, now it wasn't like a full blown punch that would knock me off, but it was like that. So not enough to claim that you physically assaulted me, although you can claim that. But like, I didn't fly across the room
No.
with his strength, but he punched me right here in the head. And I just remember my mind going, you just need to stay silent because there's nothing you can say or do that's going to protect you, save you, get you out of this. And I don't remember what the conversation was, but eventually he left. And I just remember feeling so unsafe and feeling so, just unprotected, like at any moment he can just walk in and yell at me for something that I didn't do. And one of the things that helped me in my walk away story, was I have talked to him about that and he just doesn't remember it. And I remember it's not just that. He doesn't remember. He claims to not remember things when you bring it up as, "Hey, you did this to me. Hey, you did this to me." He just goes, "I just don't remember." And even if he means that sincerely or not, it's like, if you can't remember what you did, I can't trust you. Because now you're not going to ever be accountable to what you've done. I've forgiven him, but it's like, he just doesn't remember. And it's like, yeah, that's not okay for me. I can't have a relationship with someone who doesn't remember what they did or what they said.
Right.
And think that that's okay to just bypass and just go right back to relationship. So,
well, it's almost as if the reasoning of forgetting or not remembering is going to be the release of accountability of, if I just forget, if I don't remember, we don't need to have this awkward conversation where I'm in the wrong and my child's right.
Yeah.
Or I need to take accountability or responsibility that what I did was wrong. And
and the thing with that though too is like, there's a difference between like, "Hey, you said this or you did this," and you go like, "Wow, I don't remember that at all." But if it's important enough for you to tell me, even if I don't have the same memory, you walked away thinking this, and I don't want that. So what can we do together? What can I do to help remedy this? What do I need to do in order for you to forgive me? There wasn't even anything like that.
Well, that point of approach or remedy is to remain, to have connection and relationship. Whereas how our abuser was operating was, my hands are off the table. I can't get connected. Therefore, you can't point it at me, of just this victim mode of separating you and him.
Well, yeah. And we'll go into it later when we kind of just talk
Sure.
about our walkaway story. But that was one of the ways that I reconciled within myself of choosing to not have a relationship with this guy, because he just had no concept of
Yeah.
what he did, and if
Right.
So anyway, so as a teenager, I spent most of my time at school. um, I was involved in sports. I had a part-time job. I pretty much did whatever I could to stay out of the house as much as possible.
Yeah.
Um, and and he was still kind of the same. Like he wasn't waking me up in the middle of the night punching me in the head, but he was very controlling. And I think he had to be that way because as you guys grew up, you would get smarter. You would learn what he was doing in terms of just being able to be like, wow, he treats mom and Zach differently. I wonder what's going on there. And he needed to make you guys believe that he was the perfect father and your mother
And he
and I
did.
were the problem.
And
So,
he did that.
and he did. And so I think his form of abuse for me turned into more controlling. So that way it wasn't physical, it wasn't emotional. He wasn't calling me names. It wasn't mental. Well, no, it was mental because it was just mind games. It was just control.
It was. Yeah.
You know, he had to know everything that I was doing. He had to know who I was hanging out with. He had to know how long I was going to be if I was taking the car to go get something from the store. Like I had to check in and call him when I got there. It was just control. Everything was control. And
Wait a minute. So wherever you went, he demanded that you called him when you made location, leaving location. I'm gonna arrive at this time.
Yeah, and if I was like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with a friend for an hour. Okay, I have to call him when I get there, and it better be an hour by the time I call him back, going, hey, I'm coming back home. It was just control. It was all control. I even up until I was 17, my bedtime was 9:30. I wasn't allowed. There's just so much about him was just control. I wasn't allowed to have a key to the house. In fact,
Really?
he got angry when I did get a key to the house later on when I was like 21. But that's another story for another time. It was just control. Everything was just controlling me because that's all he could do was just control. And I did what I could. So back then in time, it's different now, but back then when I was 17, I was looking for colleges to go to, and that was right around the 2008 economic crash. So people were freaking out on whether or not they could go to their dream school, if there's enough financial aid for people to get them there. And so I had applied to a few schools, but we had a university in our hometown, and I didn't want to go there, but I did go to the orientation. And because of the economic downturn, what was happening, anybody who takes online courses, like a freshman level course, your first year course is like a level 100. Okay. Math 101, psychology 101. Like it's your second year, you're in the 2s, third year, you're in the 300s, and so on and so forth. So when I was going to the university, they were so stripped for cash that we were having to take below 100 level courses that would not count towards anything, but we were expected to pay full-time tuition in order to take them. And I remember going, yeah, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. It would be a year's worth of doing that. So I'm like, so instead of 4 years, it's going to take 5 years. And I'm going to pay for 5 years.
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. But our abuser was very adamant that I was going to go there. I was going to go there, and he was going to choose my degree. He wanted me to do liberal arts, and I told him no. But he said, yes, you will. And if you're going to live at home, you're going to pay me rent. And there would be no financial assistance in terms of school. It would all be on me. So I'm going to choose where you're going to go. I'm going to choose what you're going to study. You're going to pay for it. And then on top of that, you're going to pay me rent as a minor. Which, hey, I mean, I had a job. I probably brought in like $900 a month back then. You know, that was back when minimum wage was like $7. So, I mean, like, I was bringing in decent money at the time.
Right.
But as a 17-year-old, you know, he's like, this is what you're going to do. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that. And he's like, yes, you will. And I'm like, oh, great. You know, and then as it got time for high school to end and for, you know, college to start, my first choice school contacted me and said, hey, we'll give you almost a free ride.
Really?
Yeah. Back then, yeah, I got a notification in May and they're like, hey, you have to respond by June 1st. So mom and I got in a car, went up there, drove up there. I auditioned because I was a music major. So I auditioned and then we did everything there, financial aid package, everything. So tuition was about $25,000 at the time. And my package was almost $21,000. So it was almost a full ride.
Really?
So I got a 4-year degree and only needing to pay $30,000 at the end of the day, which it's not terrible. But it got me out of there and he was not happy. He was not happy for me. He was not proud of me. He was not a happy camper that I was going to be moving 300 miles away from him. And in fact, I remember he gave me this really awful laptop, Linux Ubuntu, because that's what he liked.
Okay.
And it was this terrible, tiny micro laptop. And he wanted to put, I don't know if it was a joke, but he made a comment to me. That was like his gift to me as I was packing and getting ready to leave. That was like his gift to me. And he made a comment that insinuated he was going to put tracking software in there so he would know when I was using it, blah, blah, blah. And that was probably the first time I kind of went on a tirade on him. And I was like, I am leaving here. And it's because of you. And I can't, like, this is, no. And he didn't come up when it was time to move me up. Mom came, you guys came in a car, and our grandmother came.
I remember.
To drive with and send me up north. Now, he did give me his car, that little stick shift car. He did give me the car because he claimed that God told him that I needed it for school. So I got a car at the end of 12 years of abuse, so yay. But at 17, I moved away from home. And, you know, and I remember I wrote a letter to him because our pastor at the time encouraged me to write him a letter. And it was not a nice letter. But, you know, it didn't really change anything. And I came down for holidays and stuff. But, you know, so in a way I was away from the abuse, but also at the same time, I didn't realize until later on how much of a hold he really had on me. And we'll discuss that in one of the later episodes of what uncovering the abuse looked like for me and the things that I had to accept and uncover. But even when I left the abuse, it didn't make things better. I was still nervous. I didn't know what freedom looked like. I didn't know I could just go and hang out with friends and not have to call and tell my abuser that I was going to go hang out with friends. Or that I was staying up late past 10 o'clock. You know, I had freedom and I didn't know what to do with it.
And for music major, you needed to.
I had freedom and I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Just
because you take someone out of an abusive situation doesn't mean that they're just going to blossom and run like a dog, you know, that's been in captivity forever. you don't know what to do with your life because your normal is protectionism.
Is abuse.
So, you know,
Yeah.
and I did it alone. You know, I left. I left mom behind. I left you guys behind. Um, I knew you and your brother would be safe, but I knew mom was probably going to get the brunt of it because he was mad that he couldn't control me anymore. And mom and I, still to that time, and still to this day, are a packaged set to him in his brain, in his heart of hearts, you know? And so it was hard. Just because I was technically free didn't mean anything. I mean, it did mean stuff, but it didn't mean that I was out of the woods, you know? So, you know, it was just, yeah, abuse was not fun.
Well, and on top of that, it's, for me, so far, there's been more items to learn about your story, and interesting to hear your side of the abuse, and things like you mentioning that me and our younger brother would be safe. And I remember almost immediately after you left or were going away, he started attacking me. And our mom would be able to recall that better, but I was in high school and he started attacking me. But
That
all
wasn't
this to
that
say,
kind of though after the separation? Because I don't remember you being abused in junior high.
oh, I don't remember my timeline so much. I just remember I was in high school and I was going to their marriage counselor as an individual, saying that I was struggling and I didn't know how to navigate this relationship.
So that was
Are you
after,
saying that?
yeah. But we can
well,
but hold
either
that
way,
though. Literally write it down.
What I'm saying,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that's a point that I want to bring up later down the road. So you and I are on the right track. I understood your heart at the time when you left, and you needed to escape for your freedom, and you needed to find that, and also just escape from our abuser. I remember just feeling so lost because you protected us. You were the protector of a parent who was supposed to be the protector person. So now that you're gone, there was no fence or cage anymore to separate from the abuser.
Yeah.
Subconsciously knowing that anyways. And I think I texted you whenever I got a phone when you were up north about issues too. But
you didn't get a phone until later.
Well, it tells you how much.
No, it's
my
okay. I mean,
works.
yes, you would text me because I did go back to live up north, but no, I think what you're saying though is a testament to the abuse because, you and your brother were still treated the best. You know, it didn't mean that your father abuser didn't lose his temper from time to time, didn't yell at you guys or anything like that, but you guys still saw him going after our mother. You heard the fights that they would have, and we're not talking about your stereotypical, well, I'm angry. You know, we're talking about like
Mom's
weeping,
sobbing,
crying, wailing.
Yeah.
You know, like stuff that would make you want to like call the police because you think like something's bad happening next door. So you guys were, and that's why, you know, we talked about in the last podcast episode, you guys got a different abuse. You guys got gaslighting and brainwashing because you were living in the same household and you were exposed to the same things, yet you were treated
Yeah.
differently by the person causing all the chaos. And not once were you guys capable, which isn't a slam, but you guys weren't capable of kind of going like, something's not adding up here. How come he's like
Right.
this? All you just knew was that there was a
Yeah.
difference, and I would protect you from that difference. And now that I was leaving, you guys were still going to be like, okay, we'll be fine, but now we have to deal with this stuff on
Right.
our own. You know? And that was hard.
Do you remember?
It was hard for you
Was
guys.
that in the timeline with the session we had of their separation? And that
No,
was
that was
before?
no. No. So when I left, it was 2009. I came back in 2013, and then
Yes.
late summer of 2013 is when the separation happened.
And when the separation happened.
So you were not getting counseling from that counselor until after the
Correct.
separation.
Yeah. So to finish that idea, we all sat down as a unit in front of their marriage counselor, and essentially the counselor, great woman, she sat everyone down and she started the conversation and basically said that mom and dad are going to be temporarily separated because there's some issues that we need to take care of. And how I remember it, you tell me what's the correct pan of the event, but I remember as soon as she finished that sentence, everyone's crying, I'm crying, that's all I remember. And then you just said, I'm gonna go ahead and say my piece, I'm gonna not have a relationship with you, to the abuser. Am I remembering that right or no? Because
yes, in a way.
and then
I think we can go more into that because on that timeline, that's for me when because this episode we're talking about my abuse, next episode will be yours,
right.
episode 3, episode 4 is going to be about me uncovering
Was that
yours
got
is
it.
going to be uncovering it, and then the episode 5 or 6 for me is going to be making the decision to walk away. So the story that you're talking about is kind of like my first pebble thrown in the
got
walk
it
away.
I understand.
So yeah,
I understand.
we can talk about that here a little bit. I'll go into that a little bit, but I want to save that memory and story for later down the road, because there's more context to that story. But just in terms of build up, but yeah, I didn't say my piece there. What I said was, well, the counselor was talking about what the separation will look like, and you guys would have to spend your time split between mother and abuser. And she asked me to be part of it, and I said no.
Oh.
And she said, I would really like for you to consider it. And I said, thank you, but no.
Oh, I do remember that.
And that's all I said. I didn't go into it. I didn't explain myself.
I remember crying more.
And I'm sure she said more words after that. But at the time, her job was to communicate what the separation was going to look like. That wasn't her time to fight me on something or have a counseling moment with me in the midst of everybody else. She had a job to do. But that's what you're remembering. Which I'm sure to you felt like me speaking my piece and was more painful than just hearing the words no,
No, in the moment, it meant something else. And as you and I have rekindled our relationship, I've applied the word peace on it. But in the moment, it was quite honestly, in my chaos that I was living in and how I defined that was that you were just being defiant and you didn't want to move forward. And I just remember crying like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Of course, not knowing the whole truth back then. So yeah, no, that makes sense why I was remembering it wrong anyways, just because spotty memory. But I'm looking forward to talking more about that in the next episodes.
Yeah, we have a
Um,
lot to talk about in the next few episodes to come, but
which I'm looking forward to. I'm nervous because you have what did we figure out 10 almost 11 years ahead of post breakup, and
yeah,
I
yeah, I broke
have
up with him
barely I have like
2.
2 years. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, I'm just nervous because it's a newer thing to share, and
Hmm.
praying that the Lord continues to provide patience and peace in that, because it's so easy to run away from that. But
Yeah.
I'm thankful that you have decided to move forward in the best knowledge that you had. And I'm thankful of you finding your freedom and getting away, even though in the moment I did hate you. I'll be honest with that. But because you were the first, you were able to pave the way of what freedom looked like.
Hmm.
And it took me longer to get there. And I took my own version of finding my own freedom in different avenues and ways and vessels and so on.
Hmm.
But you paved the way for me to find the God-given freedom and be able to connect with you years down the road. So I mean, as much trauma you've endured, you were alone for so long, not just in the abuse, but in your freedom story as well. So when that time comes too, I'm just looking forward to all those details as well, because the reason why this podcast exists is to speak on our freedom and to speak on how we walked out.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
this is not the end of the series for sure.
No, it's not the end of the series for sure. We have a lot more to talk about, and we'll have a lot more stories and examples to provide each other and whoever's going to listen to this. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, on that note, we have more to look forward to in episode 3. Now, in
Yes, we do.
episode 3, just a precursor for everyone, we're discussing my
You.
story. Me.
Yeah, we're
Sorry,
going to
I zoned out.
discuss. So these next 6 episodes, one starting with today, is back and forth between you and I. So it's your and I's abuse story as 1 and 2.
Mhm.
So next episode, we're going to be talking about what Ellie remembers growing up, what she remembers seeing, feeling, sensing, and when she started realizing a little bit what things were, but talk about examples of the abuse that you can now quantifiably identify as abuse now, not as like a 7-year-old,
Right.
And then the next 2, we're going to talk about kind of like our breaking away from it, like what that kind of looked like for us. Was it therapy? Was it not therapy? Was it drugs and alcohol? What was it? What kind of got us to a point where we realized things were abuse and took a decision to change that for us?
Hmm.
And then like the story behind that. So I have my own story of dealing with it. Ellie has her own story of dealing with it. And then the last batch is going to be the healing process. So after coming to terms with everything, what healing looked like for us. How did that start? How did that look like? How long did it take? Hiccups. Did we revert back? Did we go forward? So,
Right.
and we both have 2 different stories in our lives that I'm sure both of us are going to be kind of, we know each other has had healing, and we know, like, major things, but I think it'll be very interesting to hear more intimately,
Yeah.
what each other's stories look like. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we did it. Episode 2. Hurrah.
Episode 2. Slowly
Now,
but surely.
on to the next one.
On to the next one. Who knows what
bye,
our
guys.
setup will look like then, but we'll see you guys for episode 3.
Bye.
Bye.